Hello everyone. Introduce my name is Rataberyl Baresa NPM 23412042. Here I will discuss about Land and Building Rights Acquisition Fee, or BPHTB. Definition of Land and Building Acquisition Fee, or BPHTB. Land and Building Acquisition Tax, or BPHTB, is a tax imposed on the acquisition of land and or building rights, namely changes to legal events that result in the acquisition of land and building rights by individuals or bodies. Land and or building rights are rights to land including management rights, along with the buildings on it. Provisions regarding Land and Building Acquisition Fee, or BPHTB, are regulated in several laws. Initially, BPHTB was regulated by Law No. 21 of 1997, which was later amended by Law No. 20 of 2000. Currently, the latest regulations regarding BPHTB refer to Law No. 1 of 2022 concerning financial relations between the central and regional governments, HKPD. In Article 47 of Law No. 1 of 2022, the BPHTB rate is set at a maximum of 5%, and each district or city can set the rate through regional regulations, or PERDA. The basis for imposing BPHTB, according to Article 46, is the acquisition value of the taxable object, which includes transaction price for buying and selling, market value for exchange, gift inheritance, and other transfer of rights. The transaction price listed in the auction minute. This provision aims to provide legal certainty and justice in the taxation system related to the acquisition of rights to land and buildings. BPHTB is collected by the central government, but after the issuance of Law No. 28 of 2009 concerning regional taxes and regional retributions, BPHTB was transferred to become one of the types of taxes collected by the district, city government. BPHTB is imposed on an individual or entity because they legally obtain rights to land or buildings. The BPHTB rate is 5% of the selling price minus the non-taxable acquisition value of tax objects, or NPOPQP. The legal basis for inheritance. BPHTB in Article 2 of Government Regulation P111 of 2000 states that the land and building acquisition fee payable for the acquisition of rights due to inheritance and testamentary grants is 50%. Of the land and building acquisition fee that should be payable. Difference between customs and taxes. The first difference is that the tax is paid before it is due. For example, a buyer of certified land must pay BPHTB before the transaction is carried out or before the deed is made or signed. This also applies to stamps. Whoever buys registration tax means that the person has paid the registration tax, even though it has not happened at the time the tax payment is due. The second difference is the frequency of tax payments owed can be done voluntarily or repeatedly and is not limited by time. For example, the purchase or payment of stamp duty can be done at any time. Likewise with the payment of BPHTB owed. Of course it is different from taxes that must be paid within a specified period. Violation sanctions. In accordance with Article 93 Paragraph 1 to Paragraph 3 of the PDRD law, if a PPAT notary and the head of the office are proven to have violated the provisions of the BPHTB, administrative sanctions will be imposed in the form of a fine of IDR 7,500,000 for each violation. The head of the office in charge of state auction services will also be subject to a fine of IDR 250,000 for each report. Objects subject to BPHTB tariffs. Article 85 Paragraph 1 of Law 28 and 2009 states that the object of BPHTB is the acquisition of rights to land or buildings. The acquisition can come from the transfer of rights due to a sale and purchase, appointment of a buyer in an auction, business merger, transfer of rights due to 1. Buy and sell. 2. Exchange. 3. Grants. 4. Inheritance. 5. Inheritance grant. 6. Income in companies or other legal entities. 7. Appointment of buyer at auction. 8. Separation of rights that causes transition. 9. Regarding the implementation of judges' decisions with permanent legal force. 10. Business merger or amalgamation. 11. Business mergers. 12. Business expansion. 13. Auction results with non-execution. 14. Prizes. Granting of new rights due to 1. Continuation of the release of rights, or 2. Outside of the release of rights. Objects subject to BPHTB tariffs. Land rights are 1. Ownership rights. 2. Right to cultivate. 3. Building use rights. 4. Right to use. 5. Ownership rights to apartment units and management rights. 6. Management rights. Objects that are not subject to BPHTB. There are 6 parties whose land or building rights acquisition is not subject to BPHTB, namely 1. Diplomatic representation of the consulate based on reciprocal treatment. 2. The state for the administration of government or implementation of development for the public interest. 3. Agencies or representatives of international organizations appointed by the Minister of Finance. 4. An individual or entity due to conversion of rights and other legal acts without a change of name. 5. Waqf or inheritance. 6. Used for religious purposes. Conclusion. Land and Building Acquisition Fee, or BPHTB, is a tax imposed on the acquisition of land or building rights through certain legal events such as sale and purchase, grants, inheritance, or other transfers of rights. BPHTB is regulated in Law No. 1 of 2022 with a maximum rate of 5%, which can be set more specifically through regional regulations. The basis for imposing this tax is the acquisition value of the taxable object, or NPOP, minus the acquisition value of non-taxable taxable objects, or NPOPQP. BPHTB payments must be made before the legal process, such as signing the deed, which is assisted by the Land Deed-Making Officer, or PPAT. There are also administrative sanctions for violations, as well as exceptions for certain parties, such as countries or international organizations, and rights used for worship or waqf purposes. Thank you.